Hey everyone, this is Matt with Surf City TCG. If you're new to my channel, I specialize in EDH/Commander content for Bracket 3, top-of-the-line, optimized Commander decks, typically with no infinite combos. That's my specialty. I have something a little different for you today. This is a recording of a coaching session that I did recently. He provided a deck list for me to look at, and then we covered all the topics that you can see on the screen here. And he was kind enough to agree to let me post this online so everyone could benefit from it. So here it is for you in its entirety. If this is something that you would be interested in, you can contact me directly on Discord. My handle there is SurfCityTCG, or the link to my Discord is in the video description and comments below. Alternatively, check out my Patreon for more info on how to book one of these sessions. So without further ado, here it is. Enjoy. Hello. Welcome to my coaching session. Thanks for coming.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So tell me, Zach, why don't you tell me about your Gevin deck? First of all, why is it called Gevin with an exclamation point?
Well, it's because of Home Alone, where like the mom loses their kid. His name is Kevin, and so this is Gevin. That's
All
kind
right.
of it.
I love it. So tell me about this deck.
Okay, so the way I envisioned this deck running, it's a two-part deck. One,
Okay.
I feel Gevin wants non-combat damage to be dealt to as many opponents as I can, and the payoff being I get 3+1/+1 counters on every lizard that enters the battlefield after that. So my ideal strategy is to have some big like payoff card where like it's pinging my opponents, and then in return for those pings, I get really big lizards. I noticed most of the lizards are fairly low curve; they're low to the ground, which makes it great for like casting many lizards. And if I can cast a lot of lizards, I can also get damage through with Gevin's effect.
So whenever you cast a lizard, deal 1 damage to target opponent. Yep. Makes sense.
No, that's the problem I seem to be running into. It's either I draw the payoffs or the lizards or the ramp. I feel like I need the ramp because all the big like damage doublers, damage triplers cost really high, and I want to get those out as soon as I can.
Okay, so you're not drawing the correct combination of payoffs, creatures, and ramp. Okay, but that's not unique to this deck necessarily, except that maybe your other decks are having an easier time doing that, possibly because of the colors that they are. Do you have any other red-black decks that work the way you want them to? Or have you had a red-black deck in the past, or is it maybe unique to these colors, do you think?
The only other Rakdos deck I have is Omnixilus. Omnixilus is really self-contained, where he's the payoff, he's the big beater, he's the creature, and I really just need like I feel like it's the opposite of Gevin, where he's the big payoff and he's like the threat, and I just need the cards in the deck to synergize with him. To where like I can use like a 1-mana spell to like deal a damage.
Yep. Okay. So to me, it sounds like the problem that you've described, which is not drawing all of your pieces, is probably symptomatic of just not having enough draw in general. Because if you've got good distributions of these things, which we will check, I'm going to show you how to like go through and look at that stuff. And by the way, I guess I should ask before we move past this, do you do your own categorization of cards? Like, do you use Moxfield? Is that the deck building website you like to use?
I'm starting to use Moxfield more. I haven't been that accustomed to it, so like I'm learning as I'm like kind of going.
Okay. Well, I have a series on like how to build a deck from scratch using Moxfield that you can check out if you're interested. I'll put it in the video link. It talks a lot about how to like create the types and tags here, and yeah, it goes into kind of a lot of detail about that, but I think that you probably know most of that stuff, so I'll show you how to do it, but I think, do you already know how to do it in here? I know you haven't done it a lot yet, but do you know how it works?
Yeah, I know how to use the tags and kind of sort.
Cool. So I guess the first thing I want to do, and you've kind of already done it, is talk about, like, do you know what a SWOT analysis is?
I do not.
Okay, so this is a term like used in business to analyze a potential acquisition, or like, you know, even if you're a manager just trying to figure out what's wrong with your department or a particular task or problem, you might use what's called a SWOT analysis, which is an acronym. It's SWOT. It stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this is how I like to approach building a commander deck, because I think it really helps you understand all of the ins and outs of what the commander does and how to capitalize on the things that's good at and how to bolster the weaknesses that are going to get you into trouble. So let's go through and just together, I want to brainstorm all of these things, and then we'll talk about how to think about what we come up with. So there's no right or wrong answers here. This is purely brainstorming. So just throw out anything you could think of. Let's talk about strengths first. So why don't you start off with some strengths, what you think Gev's strengths are?
Specifically the card itself or the deck?
The card itself. So we're just looking at Gev as the commander. So what does he do, and how does what he does stand out as a strength relative to maybe some other commanders, or not, just like in general?
So I think one of his best qualities is that he's a 2-cost commander.
Definitely. That's the first thing I would have said. So good call.
He has ward.
Mm-hmm.
His effect to give +1/+1 counters isn't limited to 1 creature per turn. And then he can fuel his own effect, because his damage dealing is an on-cast effect, so the creature hasn't hit the battlefield yet.
Right.
He's a 3/2, so like he's got a good power behind him.
Mm-hmm. So that's why I mentioned good rate for 2 mana, because like that goes hand in hand with what you just said, which is it's not worth it killing him. It's just a lizard, right? He's going to come back. Like, you know, you could chop off his tail, but he'll just walk away.
Exactly.
All right, what else? Any other strengths you can think of?
I think that's all that sticks out to me.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it really well. I can't think of anything else either, so I think you did a great job of covering his strengths. So what about weaknesses?
Weaknesses? I guess even though he has ward, the ward is paid to life. Life is a resource, especially depending on the type of player you're playing against.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a person that's used to paying life for stuff, like a normal black player, they're not going to think twice about ward to life.
Yep, that's a great one. What else? If you can't think of anything else, that's fine. I can throw one out and we can go back and forth.
If you don't have any other creatures like in your hand, he kind of just sits there. He himself can't get the counters, which is also like I feel like could be a problem later on.
You're right. So he's reliant.
He's the giver. He's the giver, not the taker.
Reliant on having other creatures to do his thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
That's really all I can think of for right now.
Okay, so let me throw it out. So one thing that I think when I see a commander like this, and actually when I see any aggro commander, is that you have to kind of like take a stand and start making enemies early, right? Which is something that's like a little more ethereal than you might realize, but is actually quite important when you're playing commander, right? Because it's a social game. And obviously everyone understands you're playing an aggro deck here and like you have no choice but to ping them. But still, players don't like, especially when you're playing with unknown players, like they don't like someone hitting them. Even though you're playing a game, some players just don't handle that so well, right? So requires you to kind of come out guns blazing, right?
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Okay. Yeah, and it's not just like one player. And in a way that's okay, right? Like it's kind of better that you want to be damaging everyone, but because then it's not like a single person is feeling offended, or not offended, but you know what I mean, like
slighted.
Yeah, sure. I'd say like in looking at what he lacks, and it's only 2 mana, right? So like it's not like we can expect him to have all these amazing abilities or anything, but we're just talking about where the holes are. And I think he doesn't give you any sort of card advantage, right? There's no like built-in draw or anything that gives you advantage from a resource perspective, except for the +1 counters, right? So no inherent.
He's just supposed to give me beefy lizards.
Yeah, right. And that also raises another weakness that I think of here, which is that if your game plan is going well and you're creating a board of large creatures, then what are you setting up potentially that could be really bad for you? A board wipe, right? Like someone lands a board wipe. If your game plan is going according to plan, it almost begs that someone is going to wipe the board, especially since your commander's 2 mana and you've probably gotten out ahead of them. So if I'm playing a 4 mana commander and I get to turn 4 and I've got a Wrath of God in hand, now it's like, well, I could play my commander, but I'm getting pecked to death by lizards, so maybe I should just play my board wipe and then play my commander the next turn. And then it's like they're starting from scratch, or they're starting from like playing their first creature, and you've already lost maybe 2 or 3, right?
Uh-huh.
And has that happened to you in games before when you're playing, Gev?
Yeah, because a lot of my kind of draw engines are attached to creatures.
Right. So it's all reliant on having a board state. So I guess, I mean, this isn't really one, but I'm going to put it down anyway, just because I thought of it. It's that he's for a 2-mana creature, he is difficult to cast, and difficult a relative term. I mean, like obviously he's more difficult to cast than Arcane Signet, which costs 2 colorless mana. He requires you to have very specific combination of black and red. So even if you have a 2-land hand, you could still end up getting stuck. So he costs only colored mana the first time you play him. Okay, so I think that's a good start. So then opportunities and threats kind of build off the strengths and weaknesses. He's 2 mana value, so what does that strength lead to in terms of an opportunity, right? Because now we're looking at opportunities, and we can come up with opportunities that aren't based on the strengths, but I think most of them will be by default. So let's start with these, and then if we feel like we're missing any, we can go ahead and add them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. So his strength, 2 mana value. So what opportunity does that unlock for us?
It can allow me to get in some damage early.
Okay.
Because I'm getting in damage early, I can like multi-proc his +1/+1 counter ability. So if I attack an opponent with Gav, like an open opponent, and then cast a lizard, I get 2 +1/+1 counters instead of the 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that's usually like what I would try to go for.
Okay, good. So then let me add on to that and say an opportunity I think of when I hear a 2-mana commander is a like great curve out, which is like play a 1-drop into your commander, really easy to curve out, like, and have a strong opener, right? Which is like boom, 1-drop, 2-drop, and then 3-drop. That's how you want an aggro deck to go, right?
Mm-hmm. And luckily there are lizards that are 1-drops.
Mm-hmm. His ward. So what opportunities does the fact that Gev has ward give to us?
It's almost I feel like it's a
Psychological barrier, right?
Yeah, it's a look twice, like targeting like a target. Where it's like, ooh, it has ward, and when I feel like when players hear ward or when they see ward, they have to think twice about whether they want to target my commander. Like, is it worth it? I mean, it's 2 life instead of like a ward 2. But I feel like it does make people either think about it more or punish Gev more.
Totally. And you read my mind. Like, I think ward 2 life is negligible, right? Like any intelligent player is going to like pay that in a heartbeat without even blinking an eye. But not every player is that cognizant of everything that's happening. And sometimes all it takes is hearing the word ward being floated out there and they're like, forget it, I'll target something else, right?
Exactly.
So I think what that means in terms of opportunities, and like now that we've said all that, to me, what I would do is when I play Gev, especially since it's a commander that I think not as many people are necessarily familiar with, which you would think means like, oh, they're more likely to read it and then have a more keen awareness of what it says and does. But, you know, Zach, you know as well as I do that like players don't like to read. I don't think most of them can read and they're just playing it off. Just kidding, maybe. What this boils down to is what I would do if I were playing Gev is as soon as I played him, I'd say, all right, I'll cast my commander. He's a 3/2 and he's got ward. And I'd probably just leave it at that and let that sink in. And then it just creates this psychological barrier where people aren't even considering targeting it potentially. So I think that's an opportunity. Now, is that going to work when you're playing in our pod with me and our friends? Probably not, but I think it's a good habit, and it's tiny little things like that can make a huge difference in a game. And those differences aren't always very easy to quantify because you never know like what is impacting a player's decision, but it could be like little things like that. So just something to think about.
Would you make the distinction when I say that Gev has ward? Should I say it's ward 2 life?
I wouldn't.
Or
I mean,
is that up to the opponent to read?
I don't think it's, you know, the onus is on your opponents to know what the cards do. You don't need to say anything. I think you're just trying to get a difficult to quantify advantage by just throwing out there that he has ward, but not even like I wouldn't say that the ward is pay 2 life, because then if they hear you, they're gonna be like, oh, that's nothing. So he basically has nothing. I would just say he has ward. If they ask, of course you should answer them, and like they're allowed to read the card, but I don't think I wouldn't volunteer that information.
I see.
Let players punish themselves by not reading the card. I'm bad at doing that. I like to explain how people are losing and what they should do, but you're under absolutely no obligation to do that.
I see.
I think just understanding, people will remember that it has ward, but they won't, even if you tell them. I think they'll remember that it has ward, but they won't remember what the ward is. And sometimes they'll just ask, but sometimes they just will make a different play, and you'll never know that happened, right? They're going to point their removal at a different creature because in their head, their brain's telling them, oh, that thing has ward, don't even bother. And I think you'll never know how that's advantaging you, but it could be more than you think. But that's just me speculating, because how could I know?
True.
All right. So he can feel his own effect, cast trigger versus ETB trigger. What does that mean in terms of opportunities for you as the player?
I feel like there's less room for interaction.
Okay.
On a cast trigger versus an ATB.
Okay, so but like what opportunity does that open up for you?
I feel like it's almost like I can almost guarantee that 1 damage is getting through, which will give me that +1/+1 counter.
Yep. And then 3 power. This is a good start. Let's talk about threats. Weakness. Ward is easy to pay. So what is the threat in that case? What's the threat given that his ward is easy to pay? It's that they just kill him, right?
Yeah, once people find out, or once people realize, oh, it's only 2 life, it's fine.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Like, it's not as much of a burden as paying 2 more mana.
Not a real deterrent. And then he's relying on having other creatures to do his thing. So what is the threat given that? And there's a couple of good answers, I think, to this question.
I think you've already gone through one. If a board wipe were to happen and I have to start all over again.
Yep. What else?
If I don't draw creatures, if I don't draw enough, and I'm top decking.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Yep. I think that you nailed it. Requires you to come out guns blazing. So what is the threat based on that weakness?
That I run out of steam.
Maybe, but that's not really what I was going for. What I was thinking is you make enemies what happens in some games, people stop threat assessing and they start revenge playing sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the threat here, I think. When you come out of the gates and you're picking everyone and they're having this kind of tunnel vision of like, oh my God, everyone's lost life at the hands of Zach. He's the threat, So I think the threat to you is that threat assessment gets skewed against you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and there's not really a lot of protection in Rakdos.
Sure. I think the way to, and we're going to talk about like what to do about all these, but I think just to like talk about this one briefly, I happen to think that you do a really good job of this already, but I think the way to mitigate a threat like this is to explain why you're doing things, because people don't like and are scared of the things they don't understand. So if you don't say anything and you're just hitting everyone for damage and they don't know anything about you or this commander, then they're just thinking like, they go in like fight or flight mode, right? And they're just like, I'm getting hurt, like I need to do something about it. Like kill that player. That player's hurting me, kill them. Where meanwhile, I'm playing something like Glarb and I've, ramped 9 lands and I have a full hand and they're like, oh, Glarb's not a threat. He's got nothing on the board, It's a very simple-minded thing, but you'll run into it all the time, especially when you're playing an aggro deck. People have a very short attention span and they're just like, what's the thing that hurt me? I'm going to hurt them.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed. It happens.
So to sometimes you can't avoid it. Like you just, no matter what you do, you can't avoid it. But I think if you explain to them why you're doing it, well, like, I guess like the biggest thing I'll tell you, and I'm sure you already know this, is don't assume that players know what the commander does, even if they've read it, because people are really bad at remembering what things do. And like, how can you blame them? There's like so many new cards coming out of Magic all the time, right? It's like so hard to keep track of board states. It's a hard game. You have so much going on. You have all these options in your hand. You're trying to figure out your plan. Other people are doing stuff. They're not necessarily being super clear, or their board state is confusing. It's just a very difficult game. So like, cut yourself some slack and cut players some slack, and don't like assume that they know what your thing does. So when you're hurting everyone and they're like, what the fuck, why you keep hurting me, Zach? You can be like, oh, listen, like it's not about you. Like I'm just trying to make my lizards bigger, right? And I think you do a really good job of that anyway. But that's the way you mitigate a threat like this, is make sure that people understand why you're doing it. Like, what is your motivation? It's not just like you're crazy and you're a like loose cannon and you're just like shooting everyone for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I see.
What else? No inherent card advantage / resource advantage. So what is the threat given this weakness?
I suppose that if the threat of Gev not being able to like replenish
Hmm.
like cards or mana or resources, it kind of makes him like if I'm grasping for straws, he's not going to help me. Like
Hmm.
if he dies like 3 or 4 times, then there's no really point in replaying him again. Even though he's the cornerstone of the deck, he's not going to do anything for me like by himself.
Okay. I think that's a really good one. Like, if you are in a dire situation and you need desperately to find something else that is different than what you're doing, he doesn't give you a way to do that. So I think that's a pretty astute one to come up with. But I was thinking something much simpler, which is like the threat is that you run out of cards and you don't have any way to draw new cards except for like your one card a turn that you're drawing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely run out of steam in this deck fairly easily.
Okay. And then what else? Relying on board state, easy to overstand. We talked about that. Specific mana requirement. So what's the threat given the specific mana requirement? It's that we don't draw the right mana.
Especially if I don't get a good mulligan.
Okay. So this is SWOT analysis. So a lot of this stuff might seem obvious, but sometimes just getting it down on paper really helps unlock understanding of how, and sometimes like some of the stuff sounds really obvious or simple, but I don't know. I just find this to be a really helpful like starting point when you're evaluating a deck. So that's why I wanted to start with this. So hopefully this was helpful for you, and we're going to kind of like refer back to it when I start looking at how your stuff is categorized and like what you're running. Any questions before we move into that?
Nope. Let's do it.
Okay. So for starters, I want to look at your curve and just some general things like your creature count and your land count. So let's start off with the curve. So this is a 2 mana commander, a very aggressive commander, right? So to me, what that means is, like I said earlier, we want to really curve out and play like 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to do that is to make sure you have tons of 1 drops, right? And I know like you're probably playing almost all the lizards that exist, but maybe there's some options that you weren't aware of. I'm going to show you how to find those. So what I'm hoping to see when I scroll down to the curve is a really like high number of ones. Let's just look at it. The way it's split here is with spells on the top and permanents on the bottom. So really the ones we care about are these bottom ones, for which you only have 5. And I'm guessing at least one of those is Soul Ring. So that means you only have 4 1-drop creatures, if that. Like this doesn't specify, but we can click on it and see what they are. So yeah, we've got 4 1-drop creatures, right? These 2 spells and a Soul Ring. So this is a little low for what I would want to see, because to me, like when I see Gev, what does he do? So if we were to like back completely up and you didn't tell me anything and you're like, hey Matt, build me a Gev deck, I would read this. Okay, so other creatures enter with +1 counters for each opponent who lost life this turn. So we want everyone to lose life, and then every creature we play enters with 3 counters. So to me, that's the goal. So when I see this, I think goal is damage all opponents at least 1 damage, right? The amount of damage we do doesn't matter.
Correct.
And then
And also, I like to add a small caveat. It doesn't really matter damage. I just need players to lose life, and I think that's a really big distinction.
right, so damage causes loss of life. So we shouldn't say damage because it does say for each opponent who lost life this turn. We can play loss of life effects because the end result is that they lost life. We can also play damage effects because damage causes loss of life, but not vice versa. So loss of life does not deal damage, but damage causes loss of life. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah.
So you're right, and that's an important distinction, and we should specify that. So we should say, in fact, I'm going to leave this in and we'll just strike it through. So it's really like driven home. Okay. And then if we accomplish this, the outcome is for that turn, creatures enter with 3 +1 +1 counters. Okay. So this is like if you hadn't said anything to me, this is what I would have immediately realized. Okay. So
Mhm.
then I would have thought, like, okay, if the result is that we get 3+1+1 counters, how do we maximize that result? And like, I guess, like, do we have to be even playing lizards? Now, I know you want to play lizards, and that's fine. Well, actually, you didn't say you wanted to play lizards, but are you open to not playing lizards?
I would like the majority of the deck to be lizards.
Okay, that is fine, totally fine. I will tell you though that I think that the deck is going to be significantly worse for that, and that's okay. I just want you to know that.
Understood.
Because like the second ability, whenever you cast a lizard spell, do one to target opponent. If it was to each opponent, I would be much more willing to say that the lizard build is a decent way to build it. But given that you have to play 3 lizards to damage each opponent, like, oh, come on, couldn't they have pushed it a little bit more and had it damage each opponent? It's
Mhm.
kind of sad, but that's okay. We can still make it work. But I do want to point out that one of the strengths that we didn't mention is that his buff, and I want to add it here because even though we're not going to take advantage of the opportunity, I want you to see that it is an opportunity that you're not taking, if that makes sense. So his buff, all creatures, and then an opportunity based on that is that we can play powerful non-lizards that benefit from added strength, added power,
Mhm.
or toughness. So I know you said you're willing to play some non-lizards, so maybe we'll look at just some of the best options and throw in a couple of those, if that
Okay.
sounds like reasonable to you.
Yeah, I already played some non-lizards in the deck anyway.
Okay, cool. So we've got this down. I guess the question is then, like, given this is the goal, to cause loss of life to all opponents, at least one, how do we best achieve that goal? And unfortunately, the answer is not casting lizard spells, because as I just was complaining about, it's pretty inefficient to damage all opponents using Gev's second ability. It can help us get there, but it's not like the best way, right?
Mhm.
Um, so one way is to make sure we have a 1-drop, because even if we play a 1-mana 1/1 that does nothing, and we're not going to do that obviously, but even if we did, then that means we have an attacker on turn 2 when almost certainly not everyone is going to have a blocker.
Right.
So that is one, playing 1-drops is one way to get there, and we don't have enough. That's my evaluation so far, right? Like, look how many 2-drops you have. What I like a curve to look like in most decks, and like, you can ignore these specific numbers here on the left and just focus on the curve, meaning like the ratio of ones to whatever.
Mhm.
Normally, a deck wants to have a curve that looks something like this. I think like that is like kind of the perfect curve for most decks. Okay.
Mhm.
Where your 2s are the first place, like you have the most 2s, and then you've got like the second most 3s, and then the third most 1s, and then 4 and on. Okay. Now, for this particular deck, we might not necessarily want this many 2s. Can you tell me why?
And I'm assuming that's because we want our 2-drop to be Gev.
Exactly, right? So 2s are a lot less valuable in this deck because our commander costs 2. So we never want to, almost never want to be playing a different 2-mana creature on turn 2. So that is an immediate issue I see with this deck. Now, that's not to say you don't want any 2s, because of course 2s are still like excellent and they help fill in holes later, like when you have 5 land and you could play a 2+3 or a 2/2/1 or whatever. Because what do you want to be doing in a game of Magic? The answer is like spending as much mana as you can, like being as mana efficient as you can while still making good plays. They
Mhm.
say, like, a common axiom is that the player who spends the most mana over the course of a game is the player who's going to win most often. That's why ramp is so powerful, because if you play a turn 1 Soul Ring, all of a sudden you're generating and being able to spend an extra 2 mana every single turn. So by the time it's turn 5, you have been able to spend 10 more mana than your opponents if they haven't played a Soul Ring. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, 3s are looking good, 4s are good. We probably want a tiny bit more top end. Like, you've got 2 5-mana spells, a 6-mana spell, and an 8-mana spell. So you've got 4 total spells that are 5+. Now,
Mhm.
that would be okay, except that you're running 38 land, and I know like you recently decided to add more land to your deck, and I think that was very smart. I think running more land is an easy way for a lot of new players to just do better. So I applaud you doing this. However, this is not the deck for that. This is the deck where you want to play like as few land as possible, because like you're just trying to get out of the gates blazing and like ensure that you're hitting your 1, 2, and 3 drops. Now we can like have a happy medium, but I'm definitely going to tell you we want less than 38 land in this deck. So I think we're going to try to move to that, and I want to help you make it consistent so it doesn't feel like anything changed. And we're going to do that by adding more draw and more consistent ways to like shore up your early game. Sound good?
Okay. Yep.
All right, so 38 land is probably too high. So that's what I see from the curve. 24 creatures seems very low. This is a creature deck, you know? Like you're playing creatures, they get +1 counters, you want more creatures. Like this is only a quarter of the deck. So like how many cards do you think you draw in a game on average? Just like throw a number out there. I don't need you to like be right or anything.
I would say maybe around 25 to 30. Like if you're not playing any.
I was
If
thinking
you're not
20,
playing
like, yeah, 25, 30, definitely like not that many, right? So let's say it's 25. So what's a quarter of 25? It's like just over 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's round to 6. So if you draw 6 creatures in a game, is that going to get you there in this deck, you think? Like if we were to back up and I was just to ask you, like, let's say in the course of a game you were to draw 6 creatures, you think that is going to get you a win with the Gev deck?
I think
sounds a little low, right?
It does sound a little low, but I feel like it depends on the creatures drawn.
Sure. And that's valid. But I think, you know, given that what our commander does is, this is a very powerful outcome, right? If I were to tell you, like, hey, Zach, there's a 2-mana commander, it's only 2 to cast, it's got ward, and it causes all your creatures to enter with 3+1 counters. Now, that's the best case scenario, right? But that's, like, very good, right? Like, that sounds broken. So I think, like, the closer we can get to that being reality, the better this deck is. So I think if we get close to that reality, every draw that isn't a creature better be like pretty damn good, because the opportunity cost of that draw is that we are not getting a creature that gets 3+1 counters. Does that make sense? So that's how I want you to think about it. Like, how many creatures can I play? Like, how do I get away with playing even more creatures? And does Gev buff tokens?
Yeah.
He does, doesn't he?
He does.
Have we ever thought about that? Because
there are a couple of creatures that have offspring.
Okay, but you're thinking too small here. Like, I'm thinking, you might not know this card, but like I'm going to show you how you can like find token making cards, but check out this card. Like, this is such a cool card for this deck. No one's going to do it, right? But why don't you read this one first, and then let's talk about it.
Okay, it's a temp card.
Exactly.
We know temp cards.
Yeah. So let's say we play this for X is 5. Opponents, like, you know, and let's say we also damaged all of our opponents this turn, or called them to lose life, right? That means we're getting X 4/4s, right? That's a way to win a game. So I want to really make sure that the cards we're drawing, if they're not creatures, are very impactful. This is a good example. I know man, it's been a long time already. Why am I so long-winded? I'm cursed with I have the curse of verbosity. That should be my channel name. Oh man. Okay. So shut up and actually talk about stuff then. So what I want to do, I should have said this at the beginning, but like what I wanted to do was really like revamp the deck and then do Mulligan practice together, because that's where I feel like it can really help you in the Mulligan practice, but I don't feel like we can do Mulligan practice until we make changes to the deck. So I really want to like continue looking at the deck. I think we should look at categories first.
Okay.
And then I want to make some adds. I'm going to switch over to grouping by types and tags. Now, these won't always be populated. In fact, if I just opened your Moxfield deck list, which this is not, I duplicated your deck list. And the reason I did that is so that it would pick up my types and tags. And I won't have everything tagged. See, I have a few that aren't. But almost a lot of the stuff I do have tagged already, because if you click here and go to change tags, or if you hold shift and click on the card, it opens up the tags. And then the ones that have the pound sign and exclamation point are global tags. What this means is that anytime you create a new deck list and you add this card, it's automatically going to add this tag. So these are very helpful because once you add them once, you never have to add them again. Anytime I add Hired Claw to a deck, it's going to have these tags. In general, I like to use global tags. It just makes it easier for you because, as you can see, like, look at all this work that's done for me already. So really all we have to do is add these 8 that don't have them. So let's just do that very quickly. So this is a 1/1 menace that can pump itself. So the only thing I would call this is evasive attacker. It doesn't really have any other tags that matter to me. Okay, this one is group slug / burn. This is a token maker and group slug burn. Damage multiplier. Okay, so tags are done. So this is where a template can help you. Like, I think the command zone one saying 12 card advantage, 12 targeted disruption, 6 mass disruption. This is a little intense. 10 ramp, this seems low. I like to have like 15 in most decks, but not this deck. This is like one of the only decks where you don't want a lot of ramp. It's not that it's bad, but what do you want to be doing? You want to be playing creatures, right? Playing Gev, playing things that trigger Gev, and then playing things that get bigger. Stopping and slowing down to play ramp is not the way you win a game with Gev. Does that make sense to you?
It does. Can I ask a question though?
Yes.
The other half of Gev, dealing the point of non-combat damage, I would like to be able to. The word's not proliferate, but I would like to like increase or start doubling and tripling that damage, because it's non-combat damage, and a lot of the group slug, the burn cards are non-combat damage. So I thought it was a nice, like, kind of backup strategy if Gev were to fail, but I don't know if it throws off the synergy of the deck.
Okay.
Like, that's all my high costing cards are like damage multipliers.
Sure. So we can look at that as an option, but I'm guessing that we're going to find that the best plan is to just focus on like your high mana spells being stuff that bring in multiple creatures at the same time and or give your board haste. Because when I see a commander like this, I think like, man, if you just hit everyone for one, like, again, like, I want to like go back to the ideal scenario, which is like, let's say we're able to consistently set up something that damages everyone for one a turn without us having to do anything. And I'm sure there are things like that, and we'll try to find them. So imagine we get there. Then every creature we play comes in automatically with 3+1 counters. So how do we take advantage of that? Well, the easiest way is give them all haste. And now we play a 1 mana 1/1. It's all of a sudden a 1 mana 4/4 with haste. And then if we add in something like Enduring Courage, right? You know this card? Now you've got this in play, which is like anytime a creature enters, it gets another +2/+0 and haste, right? And you can see how like you could turn Gev into like something really fearsome when every 1 mana 1/1 instead comes in as a 6/4 with haste.
I see.
So that's how I envision this. And then like, if you're in that situation, do you even care about Gev's ability to deal 1 damage to target opponent if we have a way that automatically is dealing 1 to everyone every turn? Probably not as much, right? Now, I don't know if we'll necessarily find the perfect way to do that, but I at least want to look for that, and then we could back into other options or figure out backup strategies from there. So I just want to skim through these. So you've got 6 pieces of like single burst draw, and you've got 7 draw engines. This isn't bad. Like, these are decent numbers, but I think we do need to bolster both. I like to see these numbers at like 10 and 10 personally. like 10 a piece of each of these. And then you've
Mhm.
got 10 pieces of ramp. I think this is a good number. I'm probably going to recommend that you cut some of these because, in my opinion, I think this deck, like I said, should be as many creatures as you can have it be and focus less on a card like Mind Stone, which is like, ugh, this card's so meh. You know, like I get it, you want draw, but like still, Mind Stone, meh, not into that. What else? So your removal looks solid. 11 is great. Your board wipes, you know, probably a deck you don't want as many board wipes in. Although, from what I could tell, like Vandal Blast is not really a board wipe. I just have it here. Guthrie writes history. This is a cool card. I think it's. I don't know if it's perfect for this deck, but it's pretty fun, and I think it fits well. So, and then these two are to burn opponents while also hitting their creatures. So I get it. So I think your board wipes are looking fine. You've got a ton of ways to burn people, so that makes sense. That's good. And then, yeah, so your numbers look fine. I think you've got too many land. And I think, like, do you have any token makers? You've got offspring, 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 and this thing. Okay. There's two ways I like to do ads. The first one is to use EDH Recs. EDH Rec is a aggregator, so it pulls deck lists from all over the internet, Moxfield included, but also like Architect and all the deck building websites that are out there. It indexes all of them, and then it gives these aggregate numbers for each commander. So if we were to pull up Gev on EDH Rec, we could see all of the new cards that Gev is running. That makes sense for it. The highest synergy cards and top cards, and then we could add filters. We could say I want to see high dollar decks, I want to see low dollar decks, I want to see decks with this number of game changers or with or without a certain card. So EDH Rec is awesome. Like you can do all of this cool stuff, but the great thing about Moxfield, and I think other deck building websites might have this too, is they've got this API that connects with EDH Rec that looks at the cards that you're running right now in your deck, and it makes recommendations based on other decks in its database that are running similar cards to you. So it finds the deck that have the most similarities to what you're playing, and it makes recommendations of cards you're not currently playing that those decks who are very similar to yours are playing. So let's just glance at this first, and maybe we'll see some options that we might like. So let's take a look. So Terminate is a good card, but like I don't care about it that much. I don't think we need to add it. This is a lizard that you're not playing. So what does it do? 3 mana 2/2. You choose an opponent and you get to strip a card away from them. Otherwise they discard. Yeah, I don't think this is great. I don't feel like I particularly want to run it.
That's what I thought
think
too.
I think I remember, what I might do is just put it in considering, but like, I don't even think about it. Now, I think I remember you saying that Viashino is an old creature type that they changed to lizard. Is that accurate?
Yeah, they included that within the lizard archetype.
Okay, and if we weren't sure, what we could do is click on the card and it will tell us the errated creature type right there. So we definitely want this creature. It seems perfect for this deck. Do you agree?
Do you think 4 seems to use a little high?
I do, but I also think that this card is great. It hits all of our opponents and all of their creatures. This is potentially a board wipe for someone with a board full of tokens. If you're able to give this death touch somehow, then it's just a full-on board wipe. Like, I think it's worth it. So let's at least like I'm gonna put in considering. All right, Scales of Shale. Okay, so it's like protection for Gav. I don't think we need to bother with protection for Gav because like, who's except if it's like board wipe protection, which this isn't. All right, this is the lizard land, right? What does it do? Sack it to return. I think this is worth playing. Seems cool. It's like Mind Stone kind of. If you need to sack it late game to get some value, you can.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Oh, wow. This seems really good. What do you think about this one?
It gets +1/+1 against double strike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
if we're able
go
to
ahead.
add counters to that.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy, right? Like that it's a 5 power double striker. Seems real good. I'm just gonna add these to the main deck. Who cares? We'll figure it out. Oh, this one's great. How come you're not playing these lands? Did you just not catch them, or did you actively choose not to play them?
Knowing me, I probably didn't look at them.
Okay. I mean, these boats... Go ahead.
It's probably because Rockface Village, the mana, the red mana can only be used to cast creature spells, and like you mentioned earlier, I don't have a lot of creatures. So
Sure.
I didn't want that to be like a burden like later on in the game when I needed it.
Yeah, and I think that is a really good way to evaluate lands like this, but I think the payoff here is high enough that it gives haste, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because haste is like really meaningful in this deck when potentially damaging another opponent can mean adding a whole additional +1 counter to all of your creatures that are coming in that turn. So I think it's worth the small downside here. I think this is worth it if the creature's power is 2 or less, or if you control a lizard. Okay, so if you control another lizard, you get to take any creature, right?
Uh-huh.
So these kind of effects are really powerful because not only do they like give you another attacker, but they remove a blocker, right? So if someone's playing an annoying commander with vigilance, right, and it's just like, oh, I can never get through to them, not only are you able to steal their attacker, but now they don't have their giant vigilant blocker. And if someone's playing a Voltron commander and you like can just kill someone outright, then even better. I think this is worth it. Long story short, I like this. We need more top end, so I like the look of this. I think you should add it back. All right, Laughing Jasper. He's 4 mana, 4/3. Your creatures are mercenaries. Creatures you control but don't own are mercenaries. Okay, so stuff you steal from others.
Yeah.
Mercenaries are what again?
Assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, or warlocks.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the deck preview and I'm going to switch to subtype under group. And we can see how many we have. So we got 3 assassins, hired claw, no pirates, rogues, warlocks. So we have quite a lot, right?
Yeah, surprising, right?
Yeah, so I think Laughing Jasper seems great because even if we don't have anything else, did you say Gev was too? Gev is a mercenary, yeah. So on our upkeep, we exile the top X cards of an opponent's library. So if we've got Gev and Laughing Jasper, that's 2. And then we can cast the... So it's just a draw engine, right? They can only be cast that turn, and it's like from others' decks, so not always super consistent, but we can use mana of any type. I think this is great. Let's add it. It's cheap too, you know, under $1. I think good one. What do you think about this card?
It'll deal 1 damage to target opponent whenever you cast a non-creature spell. I was under the impression we were adding more creatures to this deck.
I agree. So I think like I want this considering just so I remember it, but I think this isn't good enough. When another creature dies, this seems pretty meh, but let's put it in considering. Feed this worm, whatever. Oh, this is a good one. Do you have one of these?
I actually don't have one of those.
Okay, I think I have one I could bring you, but this seems good. Path of Ancestry. Yeah, I don't love it.
Tap land.
Like this. Yeah. All right, what about Hellspur Posse Boss? Outlaws have haste. That's good.
We said haste was good, right?
Haste is good, but this only gives our outlaws haste, and we don't have that many outlaws. Plus 4 mana for a 2/4. I just don't love this card. The mercenaries that we make, like, we don't care about. I don't know. It's actually kind of good. Actually, you know what? I didn't think about this, but it makes 2 1/1s, but those 1/1s could be 4/4s. So actually, yeah. I mean, again, like I want to operate under the assumption that the deck is firing on this cylinder. So let's put that in. And then all of these like lands, I'm gonna put them in considering, but I think like you should play these if you have them. I know you're working on getting them.
Yeah.
So we'll just put them in for now. Sign in Blood, I think, is a maybe. I like Night's Whisper, but Sign in Blood double black, a little bit harder. Upgrade and never play it. When it attacks, this seems beautiful. This is exactly the kind of card we want to make this deck go, you know? It's got menace we can get through. You know, oh, if only it was a lizard, it would be great. But still, even with this...
But it's the warlock, which is the mercenary.
Yeah, that's good. But like even without that, just like this ability does at least 1 if he's your only squirrel. But then for every other... Yeah, this seems beautiful. This card is the kind of like non-creature you should be running. Something that's hitting everyone anytime you cast a creature. Like seems great for this deck. Lightning Bolt's always a strong consideration. I think this card just like you're always happy to draw it. There's always a good target for it. And the fact it's only 1 mana is just really powerful. This is 4 mana, but like this is the kind of card we want, you know? Something that's going to make everyone lose life no matter what. The only problem that I see with this card, why don't you tell me before I say it? Like aside from the mana cost, which is pretty high, what is the problem with this ability? If everything is going the way we want it to.
Actually, I wouldn't know because it's an artifact you can use right away because it's at the beginning of combat. You're going to cast this on your first main phase.
Okay, the problem to me is like we want to give everything haste, right?
Um,
So the fact that this pings at the beginning of combat is great, but we're not going to be able to play creatures that get the counters before combat.
I see.
Now, it still might be worth it, but that's the problem with it, and that's a pretty big problem, I think. No. Lightning Greaves, like, we don't care. It's not, like, we don't have enough, like, specific threats that this is worth it. I'd rather play stuff that benefits the board. This is a good land for this deck, and it's cheap, so I think let's put this in. I'm going to put everything in, and if you don't have the stuff, like, you know, we could talk about it afterwards, but I just want to make it ideal, and then we can like adjust it.
Yeah, like I have some of these cards already. I just took them out.
Oh my god, this card is perfect for this deck. Right here. You see this? This is like the card you want, 100%. Automatically, it's happening on your upkeep. It's a draw engine. Like, yeah, everyone else is drawing too, but like, who cares? This is exactly what you want. Beautiful card. Like, so perfect for this deck. I'm surprised this is so low in the list. This is great. Just like a draw spell. It lets you kind of cycle through, like if you've drawn too many land or not enough land. Yeah, I like this. Mount Doom is good because you can, again, like it's just a land that makes black or red, which is great. And then like sometimes late game, if you need to, you could just pay 3 to ping everyone. Okay. Anyway, like you could spend all day doing this, so I don't want to like get super tunnel vision on this. What I want to do is find more stuff like that card I just found, that Stormfist Crusader. Yeah. How would you go about finding more cards like this?
Well, I guess it would be the effect that we want.
Yes.
It was the drawing cards, right?
Well, the drawing cards is great, but I think what we really want is a way, you know, to damage everyone on our upkeep. Ideally, would be perfect.
I see.
So let's. Have you ever used the Scryfall Tagger?
No.
Okay. So Scryfall Tagger is just what it says here, which is crowdsourced tagging of cards. So just like I've done here in our deck, if we will go back to types and tags, Scryfall Tagger is done this for every single card. So let's pull up Stormfist Crusader and go down to so we'll skip past these artwork tags, although these can be fun if you're looking for specific things like all this stuff here. You know, you can look these up and maybe that's what you're looking to do. But we want these card tags. So the one that I think we want is, well, opponent loses life looks good. Or do we want group slug? Like, what's the difference? I'm guessing this is a single opponent and this means everyone.
Because this opponent loses life.
Yeah. So let's try it. So what I'm going to do is use this search bar. And by default in my Mox field, I am set up, if we go into my settings and go to, yeah, here, user preferences. So I've got this defaulting to order by EDH rec. I just wanted to show you that because normally what I would say is type order EDH rec first, but I'm not going to need to do that because it automatically applies when I'm doing this.
I see.
And what this means is it's going to show the cards that are coming up more often in EDH rec than others first. Then we want to look for OTAG because we just checked it was called group slug, right? So OTAG is what these are called. It stands for Oracle Tag, group slug. And then let's see what we find. If we wanted, we could also say, let's look for lizards that meet these criteria. And we probably already have most of them, but like this is a pretty cool thing to start with at least. Okay, we saw literally all of them already, and we're playing all of them except for the Glide Dive Duo. So that's good. It means we've caught everything we wanted from there, right? So now let's take out this type lizard thing and just see what else we have as options. So dual port's great, but we don't necessarily have as much control over when it will work unless we also add sack outlets. So I think this isn't really what we want. We want something that like triggers on upkeep or something, right? So like, what if we put upkeep? So cards that say upkeep somewhere in them. Okay, Descent into Avernus is an interesting option. I actually think it's kind of perfect for this deck. I don't love this card normally, but I feel like this is a perfect card for this deck because it gives you treasures. You're the first one to get advantage from them. It damages
It
everyone. Go ahead.
does put a time limit on the game.
Yeah, and like that's important when you're playing a deck like this because the longer the game goes, the less chance you have of winning when you're playing an aggro deck. So a card like this really mitigates that, and I think that's cool. All right, this is a vampire, but it kind of does exactly what we want. So let's put in considering. This requires us to have 10 permanents to do it, but it's card advantage if we do, so that's an interesting option. This seems great in this deck. It's just like the Stormfist Crusader, but it's 3 colorless. This damages players on their upkeep, so this isn't quite what we wanted. Same with Mogus, unfortunately, and this. So maybe we want to see your upkeep, right, instead. You see how I'm like refining this as we go? So this is actually a cool one for this deck, even though it has all this other stuff, like it flips and blah, blah, blah. Like mainly this is a 3 mana rock that causes everyone to lose a life when you tap it. So I actually think this is a really good fit for this deck. Normally I wouldn't recommend you run any 3 mana rocks. I think they're mostly pretty bad, but I think this one makes a lot of sense in this deck.
Okay.
This would be good, except it damages each creature and each player. So hits our 1 mana, 1 health lizards. We probably don't want it. All right, so we've got some few things added there. Let's pause here and we can pick up next time.
I truly appreciate all that you're saying and all the thought process that you're going through.
Yeah, no problem. I hope this was helpful.
As a relatively newer player to Magic, is like this is the thought process that like I kind of have to get used to. So it's nice that you're breaking it down like this.
Good, good. I'm glad it was helpful for you. Hey everyone, it's Matt. We had to take a break here. We did end up picking up, but about a month later. Last time we covered strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We talked about like what you perceived as the problems with the deck and what our goals were, which were to cause loss of life in order to like pump up our creatures, right? And we talked about some notes, which is like needed more 1-drops, less 2-drops, maybe cut some land, and maybe have some more like high impact like game ending spells. And then I added a couple of notes that we didn't get to, like, hey, let's look at some shapeshifters because those are lizards. So what I did for today is actually completely change the deck. Like, I took what we started with last time and I made a bunch of changes and I did my best to keep it still lizard at heart. And you'll be happy to know that, in fact, let's start off with so these are the notes from last time. We covered strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, goals, etc. And then I prepared this comparison. And now I realized that we didn't talk about bracket last time. Your deck was bracket 2. I know you don't really care that much about bracket because you're mainly playing with people you know, but did you have any particular desire to keep it at 2? I did end up keeping it at 2 with my changes, but if you are okay with increasing the bracket, we could add some game changers or at least talk about like ones that might be good in this deck that you have or might consider getting. But do you have any particular goal with regard to the bracket?
I would just like it to be like overall, like generally, like I can rely on this deck to do its thing, if that makes sense.
Sure. So that's going to be true. That's a goal that we're going to have regardless of what the bracket is. Do you know what the brackets mean exactly? Or what do you think the difference between a 2 and a 3 is?
I assume it's game changers.
Okay, that's true. That's not the only thing, but like 2 is like a precon or equivalent level, and 3 has up to 3 game changers and is generally a lot more like optimized feeling. That being said, I think like we'll just stick with 2 for now, but I'll give you some like options if you want to consider adding game changers in the future. But
Okay.
You'll be happy to see that I was able to actually increase the lizard count from 20 to 28.
Whoop.
So even more lizards. Now I am lumping in 3 shapeshifters in here because they are lizards. So I don't know, is that fine with you?
Let's do it.
And I did throw in like a few non-lizards because I thought they were very important to what we were trying to do. But I thought that since I added more lizards also, you might be okay with that. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. I already have some non-lizards in the deck anyway.
Yep. And I may have removed some things. And by the way, if I removed anything, I know I kept Backfire because I know that that's a pet card of yours. But I did remove some stuff that you may have wanted in there. And if that's the case, just let me know and we'll figure out how to get it back in.
Okay.
And I'll go over like what I added and removed. These are the like overall changes. I want to talk about them big picture, and then we'll look at the actual deck. So brackets the same, game changers the same, creature count up substantially, right? Like difference of 15 versus your original version versus my new version. And the reason for that is what we talked about last time. The goal of this deck is that we are wanting to damage opponents so that we can power out really impactful creatures. And if we don't have a lot of creatures to play, that's not as easy to do. So I thought adding creatures is really critical to making this deck's game plan and slash payoff actually be a payoff, right? Because if we add a bunch of ways to damage opponents, but then don't have creatures to follow up with, then it's not really even that useful, right?
Right.
So that's why I upped the creature count so much. And that's why the lizard count went up too, correspondingly. And then these numbers like aren't nearly as important. The ratios or the changes, you know, we could, if you have any questions, we could talk about them, but I'm just happy to skip over these. And then the land is obviously important. -5 is a pretty big reduction, so I want to talk about that. And I know your default was previously like, I'm going to put 38 in all my decks. And I think that is a very good starting point for a newer player. But I think that you are a little past the point of being a new player, and you need to have more sophisticated methods, and you need to be more thoughtful about like what you're doing in a deck like this, where the average mana value is like quite low. Even before I reduced it even more, but even before, you can see your average mana value without land was 2.75. Do you understand what that means?
Yeah, the average cost of a card in my deck is around 3.
Yeah, a
Rounding.
little under 3. So if you think about like what it means to have 38 land, that's, you know, well, for the sake of simplicity, we'll say a deck has 100 cards, even though we know it's actually 99. But if we imagine the deck is 100 cards, then that means 38%. If you're running 38 land, then 38% of the cards in your deck are land, meaning like every, you know, 10 cards you draw, 4 of them are going to be land. So how many cards are we drawing on turn 3? Have we drawn in the game, assuming we're not drawing any extra cards? And
That'd be 3.
assuming, yeah, exactly. So we've drawn 10, right? So on turn 3, if you have 38 lands, you can expect to have drawn 4 land usually. And you don't need 4 land on turn 3, right? You need the 4th land on turn 4. But in a very aggressive deck like this, hitting your land drops every single turn is not necessarily as important as it is in a control deck or a mid-range deck. Not to say that you want to miss land drops, of course you don't. But if you are missing the land drops, it's not as terrible in this deck because you're usually doing something pretty aggressive or powerful if you are missing your land drops. And as you'll see, we added a lot of ways, like added a lot more draw engines, +3. The burst draw is down a little, but I think we'll make up for it in what we're doing, and we'll feel this out in the practice. So I think even though this looks scary, I want to help you feel more comfortable with this change by running through a lot of mulligans and helping you to understand like how to mulligan, because mulligans in a deck like this are ultra important, a lot more than any other deck. Aggressive decks need to mulligan properly and very aggressively, whereas a control deck can keep a little bit of a slower hand. You can't keep a slow hand with this deck and expect to do well. I think this will work out for you. Honestly, like if I were building this deck for myself, I might even be playing like 30 land. So I think this is already a safety net. Like you could go even lower than this. And again, I'm not saying that you should do this typically, but this is the deck you chose to have coaching on. And I think the way to play this deck is, you know, balls to the wall, like go hard. And if you have a lot of land, like it makes it hard to do that. All it takes is for you to draw like 3 lands in a row and you're out of the game, right? So I think that is a lot bigger danger than missing land drops, if that makes sense. Flooding is way more detrimental to an aggressive deck than missing a land drop or 2. Does that make sense to you?
I see. Yep.
Okay, so any questions on this stuff? I guess let's run through the categories because this stuff's important too. I kept board wipes the same. These aren't really even actually board wipes, so we're going to look at them in categories when we go into the deck. But, you know, this deck doesn't want to play traditional board wipes because you're looking to just jam a bunch of creatures and, you know, other players are going to be wanting to board wipe you. So a lot of what these are like kind of one-sided effects that aren't necessarily even like full board wipes. Draw, we talked about group slug and burn. So this is obviously a place I made big changes. +11 is huge. this is what we talked about last time. We want a bunch of consistent ways to ensure we're able to damage everyone, ideally before we play creatures, right? Because
Right.
if we have ways to damage people with our creatures, that's kind of good. It means we could, in our second main phase, play bigger creatures. But really, the most impactful way to have this deck succeed is to damage people at the beginning of our turn, either during our upkeep or draw step or something, and then play creatures, ideally creatures with haste, which is the next topic we're going to talk about. That way we can swing in for creatures that are +3/+3. Like, that is the way you win games with Gev. So therefore, I added 4 haste enablers because I think that is a critical element of this deck that you've been missing, and something that is really going to feel impactful for you in games. Games when you have a haste enabler in play and you're able to burn people at the beginning of the turn and then land even 1 or 2 creatures coming down with +3/+3 in haste is huge. That means you're attacking for 20 potentially on a turn, right? So
Right.
I lowered the mana and ramp count. Normally I would never do this, but again, aggressive decks are a little bit like different. I would say like my typical advice to people is, without seeing their deck necessarily, is like add more card draw, add more ramp. That is like the very generic advice I'd give for most decks. However, a deck like this, again, because it's so aggressive, really you don't want to be taking time off to ramp because every little bit matters, and like getting down even a 1/1 instead of playing an Arcane Signet or something is potentially very important because that represents an additional 1 opponent you're able to damage potentially, and therefore an increase in the power of all of the creatures you play on a subsequent turn. So I think ramp is a lot less important in a deck like this because what you want to be doing is just curving out. And by curving out, I mean playing a 1-drop, playing a 2-drop, playing a 3-drop, and just like keeping your foot on the gas, Like that's the mentality you need to have when you're playing a deck like this. Foot on the gas, go for the throat, and like either you're going to die or they're going to die, right? Like there's no in between. Like there's no mercy. Just like lean into the Rakdos mentality of like kill them or be killed. That doesn't mean you want to run no mana and ramp, and I did keep all of the like uber staples like Arcane Signet and Talisman and Soul Ring because those are all still very good. But I cut some of the like a little bit less impactful ones, including something that you might end up wanting to keep in, but I'm going to tell you why I cut it, and hopefully you agree, which is Patchwork Banner. And I know that like this is a lizard deck and we added even more lizards, so you might ask like, why are you cutting Patchwork Banner? And the reason is you really don't want to be playing a 3 mana rock like pretty much ever. Now, there are reasons to do it, but in a deck like this, even if you have a board full of lizards, like I would argue that spending the time to play a 3 mana rock, even though it's like pumping your lizards, and even though it does refund you 1 mana, is going to hurt you a lot more in terms of your chances of winning a game than it will help. Because the opportunity cost is that you're obviously doing that instead of something else, right? And if it's preventing you from damaging opponents and buffing your team by, or whatever you play, by +3/+3, is it worth it? And the answer to that question is not always the same. It really depends on the situation, but I just don't think Patchwork Banner is right for this deck, even though it seems logically to make a ton of sense. I think you really don't want to be playing a 3 mana rock. Actually, it did include 1. I think it's better. Cryptolith Fragment. So this is a 3 mana rock that enters tapped, which again, not ideal, but whenever you use it, each player loses 1 life. So the turn you play this is not that impactful. And it may be right that we shouldn't even be playing this. I think we have 30 sources of Group Slug burn. It may be that we just don't even need this and we could replace it with something better.
Mhm.
But I like this more because it says if you've got Give Out, your creatures are all going to be +3/+3 forever, right? Every turn you're going to be able to use this going forward. And that is such power, right? That you can like ensure every creature you play has +3/+3. This mana rock essentially gives you an emblem that says all of your creatures enter with 3/+1 counters.
Mhm.
And like, how powerful is that, right? If you think about it in that light, And that's assuming your commander's out. This remains the same. We don't really need this in this deck because Gev does it, right? Gev is the Anthem and +1 counter generator. So these are sort of incidental, and like, I know I hesitated to even list them here, especially since they didn't change. Now, removal going down from 11 to 5, this isn't ideal. I'd rather have this be a little bit higher, and this is my first draft, so like, don't think that this is perfect as is. We're going to run through some mulligan practice, and if we discover that like, it's hard to tell in mulligan practice like how much removal you need because you're not against any real opponents, so you're not seeing any threats and like you're not having to worry about clearing blockers and all that. I do think that 5's a bit low though, and I'd like to get this increased a little bit. So I think I want to make that one of the goals of our session today is like, let's figure out what we can cut to get removal amped up just a little bit. And then lastly, token makers. Token makers are very strong in this deck because think about it, if you're making like a bunch of one, you know, let's say you're playing like Krenko's command, like is 2 mana, instant, make 2/1/1 goblins. So you're basically paying 2 mana for 2 creatures that are 1/1s, or in other words, 1 mana for a 1/1 plus another mana for a 1/1. But if you've got Gev triggered where opponents have taken 3, all of a sudden it's 2 mana make 2 4/4s, right? So that illustrates the power of token makers, and I think that's something that you should think about when considering like what to add to this deck. Any card that makes more than 1 creature is extra good in a deck like this because every creature you're able to pump out and get benefit from Gev's ability is going to increase your chances of winning. And then lastly, the curve. I know one of the notes from our original session was I want to lower the 2-drops, but I just wasn't able to do that. You know, 2-drops are just, there's too many of them and they're just great. I did increase the 1-drops quite a lot, right? And then I lowered all of the top end. We'll talk about this when we go through the individual changes, but like I really wanted to lean into this being an aggressive deck. So it's going to be extra important that you mulligan carefully because when you play a deck with a curve like this, I'm going to keep saying it, but if you go slowly or if you like miss an opportunity, that could be the difference between winning and losing the game. Forgetting to attack or not sending your 1/1 on one turn when you should have, like because you felt bad for someone. Just you can't do that because this deck is going to win on the margins. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So Muxfield allows you to like compare to another deck list. So I have your original deck list here. So I'm just going to go to more and do compare. And then I'm going to select your original. And if you didn't have it like in your decks, you can just copy the link like this and paste it here, even if it's not your list. So this is a pretty cool feature. I'm sure other deck builders have this sort of thing too, but I'm just not familiar with them. So it's going to tell us 3 things, which is one is cards unique to your original, meaning like these are cards I cut. Because if they're unique to your original, that means they're not present in the new version. There's unique to the new version. So these are cards I added. And then there's shared in both. So these are cards that are unchanged. So 62 cards remain the same. I added 37 new ones, and I therefore must have cut 37. So I'm not going to run through all of these, but I am going to talk through some that I feel like are warrant discussion. But please stop me if you have any questions or want to know why something is here if I skip over it or something. So I guess I'll just briefly start by talking about the lands I cut. Any land that enters tapped for any reason, I cut. Because, first of all, I hate lands that enter tapped. There's one exception, and it's the Surveil lands, and that is only because they're fetchable with fetch lands. Having a land enter tapped in this deck can be like the difference between winning and losing a game. Because if you needed just 1 mana to get that last, like, there's a concept with aggressive decks called reach, and I'm not talking about the keyword reach. Have you heard of this before?
I haven't.
Okay, so reach refers to like an aggressive deck's ability to like close out or clinch a game. The frustrating thing with an aggressive deck is like sometimes you get them really low and you just can't finish them off because they turn the corner and they like either land a life gain spell or they land that last critical defender that like makes it so you just can't get through anymore. And then even though they're sitting there at 1 health, you just can't finish it off because you know whatever happened in the game, they're obviously trying to stabilize the whole time, right? And then maybe they finally succeed. And reach refers to that like ability to push past that wall and like end it. So Sundering Eruption, this is an example of a card that gives you reach. It destroys a land. That part is not as relevant as the second part, which is creatures without flying can't block this turn. This is the kind of spell that can like get you through a stalled board and help you finish out a game that was otherwise out of your reach, if that makes sense. So lands that enter tapped, or a land like Shadowblood Ridge, which is usually like fine, but occasionally you'll be in a situation where, let's say you're going to draw a card in combat somehow. I don't know if you have any way to do that, but like, let's say you needed to find a land and you're able to draw a card if you hit someone in combat, and you do draw the land, but then it's this land. So like this land doesn't enter tapped, right? But if it's your only land that you can play that turn, then it is basically the same as entering tapped, right? Because you can't do anything with it unless you already have a mana available. So if this is the first land you play in the game, you can't play a 1-drop, right? It's just like the signets, like Rakdos Signet or whatever, all the guild signets. They're good because they can filter colorless mana into colored mana, but there are going to be a bunch of times where they kind of mess you up or interrupt your like rhythm, and that is the problem with them. And then Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse, these are the ultimate noob cards. And I don't mean any offense when I say that. I just want you to know that these cards are awful and you shouldn't play them in any deck except for like a extremely dedicated landfall deck. These are strictly worse than like so many other options that are also budget. They, especially in a 2-color deck, because like if you compare Evolving Wilds to something like Foreboding Ruins, right, which I'm also cutting, or let's take Smoldering Marsh as a better example. This land enters tapped unless you have 2 or more basics, and you're playing a lot of basics, so often this is going to enter untapped. But those times when it doesn't are going to be very annoying. But if you compare this to something like Evolving Wilds will get you one of the 2 colors you need, but only one of them, and it's always going to enter tapped. So like this is so much better, right? But I'd say like in general, tap lands, just stay away from them. I don't need to dwell on this. Like in a 2-color deck, it's easy enough to get all your colors. This isn't a like super color intensive deck, so just don't bother with the tap lands. Just add more basics, or better yet, like add better lands. Like if you've got lands like the ones we've talked about that are good, like those are great, go ahead and add them. But if you don't, in a 2-color deck, you don't need to feel bad. Like it's fine. You're gonna be completely successful with just basics. All right.
Okay.
And then Mines of Moria, this is fine. Your commander's only 2 mana, so it's going to enter untapped sometimes. But like, have you ever used this 4 ability?
No.
Yeah, it's and that's what you need to ask yourself. Like, this is going to enter. How often is this going to enter untapped? What percentage of the time, if you had to guess?
I would say more often than not, because like you said, Gev is a 2-cost commander.
Yeah, I was thinking like 80%. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it worth this entering tapped 20% of the time in order to get an ability that you're going to use 1 out of 20 games? Probably not. Like, like if the ability was very impactful, maybe, but like you're not a treasure deck, you're not a graveyard deck, like it's 4 to activate. And when a land costs 4 to activate, you have to actually think of that as 5 to activate, because you also have to tap this land, which is an opportunity cost because you could have tapped this for mana, right? Let's say you have 5 lands, right? So on a turn, when you have 5 lands, you could tap and make 5 mana, or you could tap 4 and tap this, which is also tapping all of your lands. So in that scenario, you're also using all 5 of your lands, if that makes sense.
Right.
So this costs 5 to use, not just 4. And that feels even worse, right? 4 is already a lot. And there's a cost of exiling cards from your graveyard. Foreboding Ruins, this is probably the best land that I cut, but I still don't like these lands. They are not good top decks when you need a land. It's very frustrating to top deck this card when you're desperate for a land, because you obviously have no land in hand to reveal, because you're like dying to draw a land, and then you draw this, and it's just like, oh, dagger, right?
Right.
So I hate these lands. I don't play them ever. This land is fine. I don't like these lands in Commander. These are very good in like Modern and Standard, because in Modern and Standard, people are like winning on turn 3. So like it doesn't even matter that this enters tapped once you've got 3 land already. But in Commander, like the opposite of these, so these are called fast lands. These ones that enter tapped unless you have 2 or fewer other lands. The other ones are called slow lands, and they enter tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Those ones are quite good, but I wouldn't run either in this deck. This is probably the right one to run in a very aggressive deck, but I'd rather just run neither, especially in a 2-color deck, because you're going to be hitting the colors you need consistently enough anyway. So I wouldn't bother. This land, I get it. Like, it pings someone, and that's great. It's on theme, but I would say, in my opinion, the opportunity cost of this entering tapped is not worth the 1 damage, even though it synergizes with your commander. Now, if you disagree with that and you have found this to be quite good, then I would say like go ahead and throw it back in. But I think given the changes I made and like I really like intensified the early game curve, I don't want you ever having to make a hard decision of like, oh, I'm gonna like make my turn worse in order to ping someone for 1, because we're gonna try to make sure the deck can do that without leaning on something like this that only hits 1 opponent anyway.
Okay.
Bojuka, great land. I don't run it in every deck. And this is a perfect example of a deck that I don't think you need it in.
Mm-hmm.
Your goal with this deck is to kill people before any graveyard shenanigans are like an issue. Now, there are going to be reanimator decks that are like popping off and they're like trying to reanimate villas on turn 2. This isn't going to help with that anyway, you know? Like this is the kind of card that helps you in a grindy game where someone is like recurring a Spore Frog forever. That's when you want your Bojuka Bog. But in a game like that, that's grindy and you're already at like mid game or late game and it's like, oh man, I wish I had some graveyard hate. You've already lost that game, to be honest. Like if you're playing an aggressive deck like this and you've gotten to that stage in the game, it's pretty hard to win. Now, I'm not saying that you can't. Actually, this deck has a lot of reach because you can play Gev and you can burn everyone. And then if you have a haste enabler, you can kind of just get in from nowhere, out of nowhere, like unexpectedly. So I wouldn't count yourself out of any game, but I also wouldn't play a land like this that 1, enters tapped, and 2, really helps us like in the mid or late game when our goal is to just win before then. All right, other cuts. Vandal Blast is the same logic I just gave with Bojuka Bog. Now, Vandal Blast is great because it's flexible. You can cast it on turn 1 just to pop someone's Soul Ring. It might be worth adding this back, but I'd say in general, like Vandal Blast is good in mid-range decks because it's helping secure like the long game. And just like I was talking about with Bojuka Bog, not quite as important in this sort of deck. Ruby Medallion, like great in monocolored, probably good in this deck, but like I think we're moving away from the reliance on mana. Same thing with Relic of Legends. Like you don't want to be tapping your creatures. You want to be attacking with your creatures. So Relic of Legends, I love the card, but not right for this deck. Solemn, same thing, like mid-game ramp plan, not what we want to be doing. Wild Wasteland, I like this card. I just added some more efficient draw engines. Could be worth adding this back. This is like a potential add back. Phyrexian Arena is too slow for this deck. Like it's a good card. I still like it. I think it's a little power crapped, but I think this is not the right deck for it. And then the removal I took out, like Bedevil and what else? Guff Rewrites History. Sudden Spoiling, I know, I love this card, like, and I know you like it too. I just don't think that this is quite the right deck for it. But I could be wrong, and this could be worth adding back. Withering Torment, all these 3-drop removals are too slow. Like, I barely like Withering Torment in mono black. Bedevil, I never play this card. It's just, first of all, it's like so color intensive. It's a beautiful card. Like I love the art, but I just don't ever play this card. The City on Fire, I see the logic here, but like you don't want to be tapping your creatures. Like, you know, spending a turn to tap your creatures to get this out is just asking to be board wiped.
Mm-hmm. One, could you go over the Defiler of Instinct and the Warstorm Surge? Are they just too mana intensive?
So Warstorm Surge, yes. This card is great in a mid-range deck that's like playing a bunch of big creatures. And like, yeah, Gev is gonna make your creatures big. So like if the stars align and you're able to land this, so you know, how does this play out well in a game? You have Gev on board already, right? You land Warstorm Surge, which means you're not doing anything that turn except for playing Warstorm Surge, right? So you have to play this and then untap with it. And any opponent worth their like salt is gonna say, Warstorm Surge, I need to kill Zach or kill that or I'm gonna die. So this is like what I would call a win more card, because if you play this and can untap with it, your opponents are either stupid or have no ability to deal with you, in which case like any 6-drop is gonna win. I would rather play a 6-drop that's going to affect the board immediately. Warstorm Surge is great in a deck that can ramp and like play this and something else on the same turn, but in a deck like this where this would be your top end like finisher, I just don't see it really working out. And if it did work out, I don't see it working out where something else wouldn't have also worked out just as well. I think for your like very heavy spells, you want to make sure that they're going to be very reliable. And then the other one you asked about was what was it?
Defiler.
Defiler.
Bottom right.
Yeah, so this was a tougher cut. I could see being wrong about this one. I was really on the fence here. My logic was the 1 damage to any target is great, but I added a lot more group slug that's hitting everyone. So I think you need this less. The discount is actually really nice, but it's only on permanence. I did add more permanence. I don't know. It's tough to make cuts, and I could have been wrong about this one. I think this is a really good card, and maybe we consider adding it back.
Okay.
Unexpected Windfall and Big Scorer are just not what this deck needs. They're good cards, and I play them often, but I think we added better draw engines that we'll go over right now.
Okay.
And anything else in here that you want to talk about?
Not really. I think everything else I kind of get the picture with.
Okay. Let's talk about what I added. So I added this 1 extra turn, extra combat spell. I think it's probably the best one for this deck. Although, if you've got that new one from Aether Drift that gives you like 3 extra combats or something, I think it's called...
It's not full throttle, right?
Yes, full throttle is it. Yes.
I do happen to have that card.
I think you could play that instead of this. Especially if you don't have this. But I do really like this one. It's only 3 mana if you're able to hit someone with your commander, which I think you'll be able to do pretty frequently. Would you say that's true, that you're able to get in with Gev pretty often?
Yeah, Gev has surprisingly good stats for a 2-drop, I feel.
Exactly, yeah. And I also think like with a deck like this, you need to know how to bluff. And I think you're actually very good at that. So that is helpful. Sometimes if you just send your 3/2 into their 4/4, and then they're like, what happens when you do that? They're like, this is a 4/4, right? And you're just like, yeah. And they're like, what are you up to? I don't block. It doesn't always work, but like something to try. But I think you're already pretty good at that. So Scrawling Crawler is just great. We talked about it last time. Just burns everyone on your upkeep. It's a draw engine that helps you too. So excellent. Enduring Courage gives haste. Not a lizard, but like perfect card for this deck. It buffs your creatures, gives them haste. It's just like everything you want. The Rot Caller, again, not a lizard, but burns everyone on attack, and it has menace, so it's easier to get through. Plus, it burns them for a number of lizards, which is nice. This is a lizard that is a removal spell. So I thought this was really cool, because you can cast this, and it triggers Gev, and you get to burn someone with Gev's trigger, but you also get to use this as removal. Or you could use it as a pump spell if you need to just finish someone off. So it's kind of flexible for that reason, too.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? Because it's +3, -3.
Yeah.
So usually you're going to use it as a removal spell, but like sometimes you can just get in for the win with it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 1/1 lizard that's unblockable. Really good. Descent's great. This is like 1 mana draw. You're going to be burning people anyway, so a great card in this deck. Taurian Mauler is another one of the changelings I added. It's a lizard, boar, and every other type. Mm-hmm. These 2 spells don't make lizards, but they make a bunch of 1/1s. This one, they both give haste, actually. This makes rats. It gives all of your creatures haste. This makes elementals, and like opponents get a chance to make creatures too. But if they do, you get even more. And like ideally, you're playing these spells not to trigger Gev in the first place, but once Gev is already triggered, so that instead of 1/1s, you're making a bunch of 4/4s. So right. These are both like massive finishers, right? Imagine landing this. So this is the kind of card I want to see you play in a deck like this versus Warstorm Surge. So imagine turn 6 when opponents are already reeling from you hitting them for a bunch, and then you slam Warstorm Surge, which does nothing that turn, versus slamming this for X is 5 and putting 20 power on the board. See the difference?
I do.
Bantu's Monument, phenomenal in this deck, right? Every time you play a creature, everyone loses 1 on cast, and then those creatures enter with 3/1 counters. This basically says every creature automatically gets 3/1 counters. And the black discount part is by far the least important part, but it's still going to help a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Pact of the Serpent, this card, I love this card. It's really great in tribal decks. Usually you're going to target yourself to draw a bunch of cards because you have a lot of lizards, but sometimes you can target the Glarb player who has 100 zombies and just kill them.
Yeah, so that's true.
Just don't do that. please.
Okay.
Thanks. You're lying, aren't you?
Well, you said the bluff, right?
This session is over. Ogre Battle Driver is a much worse version of Enduring Courage, but Enduring Courage is going to be one of the best cards in the deck, so I'm okay with playing a much worse version of it in order to have a second one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Dark Confidant, not a lizard, but going to be one of the best cards in your deck. This is the kind of card that you play before Gev, because it's that good. It's just going to draw you an extra card every turn. Key and Duelist, where is it? Like Dark Confidant, but you pick an opponent who's also going to get to draw, and they're going to take damage equal to what you reveal. It's like, kind of a twist on Dark Confidant. So this is really good too, because you're going to hurt someone also at the beginning of your turn, which is nice. Wheel of Misfortune. If you don't have one of these, it's worth picking one up. It's like a wheel. You know what it does, right?
Yeah. That's the one where like you all pick a number and whoever like does the lowest doesn't wheel and the highest does wheel, but then takes damage.
Yeah. You don't need to worry about any of that stuff. The only reason we're playing this is because it's a 3 mana draw 7. And does your like ultra aggressive deck want to draw 7 for 3 mana?
We sure do.
Exactly. So you don't care what opponents do as long as they don't outbid you. Your goal is to not be the lowest bidder. That is like the number one goal. And that's usually quite easy to do. But if you're at all suspicious that everyone wants a new hand, that's when you need to start worrying and then consider bidding a lot of life, because you're not playing this to hurt players. You're playing this to ensure you draw 7. And that is like very important that you succeed at doing that. We will stop there. Any questions before we jump into Mulligan practice? Do you feel like you understand how this should be played?
I do.
All right, let's do it. Take a look at this hand, and I want to hear your whole thought process on whether you're keeping this. Let's assume we don't know who our opponents are or what the turn order is, but we're going to treat each hand as like, if you say you want to mulligan this hand, we're going to go to our second 7 and then down to 6 and 5 and so on. Okay? So what are your thoughts on this hand?
There aren't any 1-drops.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 2-drops and Gev to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a 3-drop, but I do have 3 lands.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, you said I want to aggressively mulligan.
What else are we looking for? Like, what is the main focus of the new deck?
I want to play a creature every turn.
Okay, but not that. Like, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to ensure that we have? I'm sorry if this is not clear. If you don't know, just say I don't know. We want to ensure we have a way to like burn everyone, like to make sure our opponents are taking 1 every turn, right? So that our creatures come in big.
Uh-huh.
So here's the things I want you to look for in a mulligan. Number 1, a way to trigger Gev consistently. So this is my fault. Like, let's back up for a minute. So first of all, I think that hand was a keep. But let's just, before we do mulligans, talk about the best cards in the deck and like what we're looking for in a mulligan, because I think that is something that we obviously like. We want land, right? We need like some land so we can play our cards. So that's obvious. I would say in other decks, you're looking for like ramp, but in this deck, that's not as important. I think in this deck, what we're looking for is ways to ensure we can trigger Gev consistently. So if I switch to types and tags and look at our group slug, we have 30 different things. I'm going to sort this by mana value. I'd say the best ones are the ones that can do it for the least mana, right? So these land sources can do it, but they both cost 4, meaning 3 to activate, and they require you to tap this land. These are just incidental, and they happen to be like able to do it late game, but they're not that good. This only damages 1 when you attack with Blood River. This one's pretty good. Like, this is 1-drops are great. So the first thing you said, definitely on point. like 1-drops are important. And like a 1-drop like this is one I added, by the way, not a lizard, but it does damage all opponents and it gives you a blood, which is, sometimes helpful. This is the kind of 1-drop I actually wouldn't play on 1. This is a great 1-drop to play on turn 3 right after you play Gev. And then you can curve into like 2 other 1-drops or a 2-drop that comes in with 3 counters. Does that make sense? So like a lot of your 1-drops, you're not necessarily going to want to play on 1, except for one like Iridescent Vine Lasher, which is great on 1. This card, Creeping Bloodsucker, this is one of the best cards in the deck. It just sits there and it burns everyone at the beginning of your turn. Awesome. Agate Instigator, probably the best card in the deck, except for maybe Impact Tremors. So if we keep a list of like what the best cards in the deck are, that can be a helpful thing for mulligans, right? I'd say Impact Tremors might be the best card in the deck. I'm trying to like think if that's true. This Sanctum, also extremely good, right? Because these are ways to just ensure, especially the Sanctum, because the Sanctum works every turn no matter what. So this is an awesome include, like very good to realize that this is a good card in the deck. I think it might be the best card in the deck. Bontu's Monument, one of the best cards in the deck. Descent into Avernus, one of the best cards in the deck. This card is so good in this deck. Like, I don't actually normally like this card that much, but it is so good in this deck because it's giving you treasures. You're the first one to get access to them. It's hurting everyone, right? It happens on your upkeep where everyone takes the damage. It's just everything this deck wants, like all rolled into one. Yeah, so I think number one is we're looking for a consistent way to hurt everyone. Number two is we're looking for a draw engine. And that's really it. Like, those are the things I would look for. I guess a haste source would be the third. But I think those two things are the most important. A consistent way to hit everyone and a draw engine. Make sense?
Yes.
All right, let's start over. All right, so take a look at this one and tell me, are you keeping this hand? This is 0 land hand.
Probably not.
Well, we've got one land, right? This is a land, so let's not ignore that.
But it's a red land, though.
Right. If we draw a swamp, this hand is insanely good. It's a shame that it doesn't work, right? Because, like, these are, like, maybe some of the best cards in the deck, like, all together here. Like, this, if this or, like, this were a swamp, like, oh, man, this hand would be so juicy. But, yeah, it's too risky. If this were a swamp, do you think it's keepable?
I would say it's more keepable.
That's not what I asked.
No.
Yeah, no. You're correct. So unfortunately, this is not a keep. Don't look at the top. Not worth it. Second 7. What do we think about this one?
I can't keep this one either.
Yeah, this one's painful. Because any land gets us there with this hand, and we have a 1-drop. You know, if you're feeling like it's an extremely tough matchup, or you just want to gamble, I'd say, just to be clear, I think this is a mulligan. However, if you're a degenerate gambler, like, this hand is really good if you draw any land, and you have basically 2 chances to do that. I think the odds are that you get there, and the payoff is very high if you do get there, right? Because this hand's really good. Any hand with the Dark Confidant, like, is that you can play early game is going to be so good. Like, I don't know if you've ever played this card, have you?
I have the bat version of it.
Yeah, that one's like significantly worse just because it's 3 mana.
Yeah,
it's actually like really good. I like that card, but man, nothing feels quite as good as playing a Dark Confidant on turn 2. It just feels like you can't lose that game. Like, the damage you take is practically irrelevant. Like, it's just like a 2 mana 2/1 that draws you a card every turn. So good. So, you know, I would never keep this hand, but I think the argument could be made that this hand is good enough. Like, if you draw any land, ideally a swamp is best, right? But any land gets you there because you got the 2 mana rocks. So anyway, let's take the mulligan, but I think this one's close.
Tempting.
Yes. All right, how about this hand? This is 6. So what do we think about this hand? We didn't talk about this card, but this card's cheap. It's like under $1. And I think it's really, really strong in this deck. This is like such a great top end for this deck because not only does it give all your things haste, including itself, right? It's a 4/4 with haste for 5 mana. But then having your creature's opponent's control enter tapped is such a big deal because it means they can't block. And it's just like fuels everything that you want to be doing. So I think this is a really cool card for this deck. I like this when I saw it. Anyway. Forget that. That has nothing to do with the keepability of this hand. So what do you think about this on 6? It's this or go to 5.
We're missing a way to burn, but then we have a potential light up the stage that can maybe exile something.
Yeah.
No. If
so,
okay, so you said this should be going to 5, right?
Correct.
I feel like I would keep this one in this case.
I think that's definitely right. everything I said about like the ideal things to have in your opening, those things start to go out the window when you're like about to go to 5. And a hand like this that has 2 land and playable cards in your opening turns, this hand looks like beautiful as a 6. It's not perfect, but like, you know, it's like as you get older and you start to get more desperate, you like accept maybe dating people that you might not otherwise. Like it's just like that with mulligans, right? You're looking for something perfect when you have like a free mulligan still, and then you're like down to 7 and you're like I'm still looking for something perfect. I'm going to try again. But now you're about to go to 5, so it's like, okay, like I'm going to start to accept what I can get. So this hand looks great. I mean, we've got a turn 1 play. It's not really a turn 1 play, but like getting this tap land down when we had nothing better to do is like a turn 1 play. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but like there's not really ever going to be a perfect time to play this land, so it's kind of nice to get it down when you can. And then we've got a follow-up. So next question, what are we bottoming?
I would say the Phyrexian.
Meaning this card? Urabras?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I agree, but it could be this. But no, I think it's pretty easily this.
The Serpent would have been my second choice. Back to the Serpent. That would have been my second choice.
I was about to say this, but then I realized that was foolish, and I think it's easily this. We have no like path to casting it anytime soon, so I think very easily this card. So,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Good call. All right, let's play it out. So drawing, what are we doing now?
Play the tap land.
Yep.
This one. Then
turn.
pass. I would say play the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And the Gev.
I'm not hesitating because I think you're wrong. I'm just still thinking. So Gev is versus this, which does what? Opponent lost life, so that's not going to trigger. And the other option is Felwar Stone. So what if we were to play Felwar Stone right now, then that means next turn we have 4 mana, and I don't think that really helps us at all. So I think, yeah, it's very easily Gev. So good call there.
The reason I say Gev is because next turn I can attack with Gev. We can do light up the stage and then look at more cards.
We can also play this Flame Cash Gecko and for free, right? Because it enters, we hit someone with Gev, and then it refunds what we paid for it.
Yeah.
I think like next turn the number 1 goal is going to be get this down right away, because this card is broken, and you should just play it ASAP. So whatever you do next turn, it needs to include playing this. So I think playing light up the stage is definitely wrong. Well, I mean, I don't know what we're going to draw, but like anything that involves not playing this, you need to have a really good reason. So this card is going to just win you the game by itself. You just full send every turn, and it's hard to lose. So let's just go to a new hand. All right, so this is a fresh 7, new game.
I only see 1 land again.
So we've seen several hands with only 1 land. Does that mean we need to add more land?
Potentially.
But don't get hung up on small sample size, because that's going to happen. I think in general, you're going to find that it's going to work out. You might need to be a little bit more aggressive with mulligans, but I think this is going to serve you better in the long run. So I want you to not get frustrated if like you take a bunch of mulligans and end up with like 0 landers. That could have happened with 38 land too. It's obviously a little bit less likely to happen, but like, you know, if we look up the odds of like, you know, there are things that tell you like how many lands you're expected to draw, blah, blah, blah. Like this is unlikely to happen is what I'm saying. And like small sample size is going to do that, right? You're going to see a bunch of anomalies.
Right.
Just trust me and like play it out. And if it really like feels like, look, it's happened again. This is very unlikely. Like we should be drawing more lands than this, even given the number we're running. So anyway, like, what about this hand? Are we keeping this or are we going to 6?
Going to 6.
We have a turn 1 play and it gives us a blood, which can draw us another card, but I do think we should go to 6.
But the blood token costs 2 to activate, though.
It costs 1.
Oh, that's wow. I thought it was 2. Okay, I mean.
But still, I think we go to 6. We could do better with 6 for sure. Okay, how about this one?
All right, so there's 2 lands. I have a turn 1 play. I have a good turn 2 play with Ketis. I would keep this.
Agree. Why do you think Ketis is a good turn 2 play, though?
Sorry, he'd be turn 3 play.
Yeah. Okay.
Gev will come first, and then Ketis.
All right, so this is 6, right? So what are we putting on the bottom?
I'd say the Assassin.
So I'm leaning more toward Rakdos Charm or Lizard Blades. I think the Assassin gives us, like, at least some way to consistently cause opponents to lose life. It's not perfect, but it's a 1/3, so it can get in pretty well. And, like, putting a creature on the bottom is not ideal when we've got, especially, like, when we've got Ketis, which means, like, what we'd love to do, it almost might be worth holding back the Changeling Outcast, because if we think through how our first 3 turns are going to go, we play Gev on 2, then we play Ketis on 3, right? And we swing in with Gev, we hit everyone, then we could drop the Changeling Outcast as a 4/4. Could be worth it. Just something to think about, like, before you slam your 1-drops. Make sense? I'm not saying that's necessarily the right play, but I think we bottom Rakdos Charm here. It's a little bit more of a, like, card that is not as important till later anyway. It it can hit everyone for 1, but we sort of have a way to do that with Ketis anyway, so I think we don't need this as much. And we want to keep, when we're going down to 6, we want to keep more creatures so that we can really eke some extra value out of Gev.
Okay.
All right, so let's draw. So we drew a land. Really didn't want to see a land because, like, this hand needs some gas, but whatever, it's going to happen. So do we play the 1-drop here or not? Now, before you answer that, like, given that we drew a land, I think it might be important that we consider the play I suggested earlier. But yeah, I don't know. This hand needs some gas big time or it's going nowhere, right? So I'm not really even sure.
Would you consider, because the play I was thinking about eventually was ending up with Gev with the Lizard Blades attached to him with Ketis out before the Assassin. Because wouldn't that be more damage?
So you're talking about on turn 4 now?
Yeah.
Well, we could figure that out when we get there. I don't think you need to plan that far ahead because, like, you don't know where you're going to draw or what's going to happen. So I think the board state will dictate what the right decision is at that time.
Okay.
So if you're asking now because you feel like it influences this decision, I don't know if it does, because the question is, do you play this now or do you play it in conjunction with Ketis on turn 3? And I think I might lean toward playing it on turn 3 because that makes it more impactful. It comes in as a 4/4. It also protects it sort of from, like, early game board wipes. Not that that is really a thing, but occasionally someone will have something that, like, would hit a mana dork. I don't know. We don't need to dwell on this too long. Let's just play it now. Who cares? Next turn. All right, so we're playing what here?
The Mountain into Gev.
And then I guess another consideration was playing the Outcast next turn also, like, burn someone with Gev.
That's also true.
But that's only 1 damage. So, and we're losing the 1 damage. We're losing 2 damage actually from not attacking with it on turn 2 and 3. Okay, next turn. Nice draw. So now we're at a turning point. So what do you want to do here? Let's assume that we can get in with Gev for damage.
I would still say play Ketis.
Okay.
Like play the swamp.
Why? I don't agree.
Okay.
So did you, before you said that, like, tell me, what was the other play you were comparing playing Ketis to?
The Bonchu's Monument.
Okay, so tell me why you think playing Ketis is better than Bonchu's Monument.
Well, if I play Bonchu's Monument, there's nothing I can cast beyond that. Well,
Mhm.
actually, wait. There's one thing no, there's nothing I can cast beyond that.
True.
It's the Bonchu's Monument. If I play Ketis, I can at least swing in with Gev and get 3 damage on everyone. And like I said, I want to be aggressive. And so if I have a turn of doing quote unquote nothing or getting 12 damage on everyone, I'm going to try getting 12 damage on everyone.
Okay, I think that makes a ton of sense. However, I want you to like think a little bit more long term. So there's two things. Playing Ketis now means we're wasting a mana, right? Now, that's not the end of the world, but it's something to think about. Like, you want to try to play in curve whenever you can, especially in an aggressive deck. Little decisions like this, like wasting 1 mana, could be the difference between winning and losing a game. That doesn't mean I think you should play a card just because it costs more, but it is one of the considerations that should like be included in your calculus of any given like decision. But I would argue that the Bonchu's Monument is going to, by playing it this turn, is going to be more of an aggressive play. Let's just compare the damage we're dealing like over the next 3 turns. So, so let's say we play this land and we play Ketis. And then we send for 4. Actually, let's just get rid of this guy.
Well, on cast, Gev will do a damage to someone. So Ketis will be coming in as a 2/2.
So we're damaging 1 player, so they're at 39. He's a +1. And then we're sending for 3. And then opponents are taking another 6. So let's just do all of opponents with 1 life total. Okay, so we've done 10 damage so far. And then we have to pass, right? And then we go to our next turn. Let's not even draw. I just want to like play it out with what we have.
Okay.
So now what are we doing this turn? So we untap Gev. So let's say we draw like something unplayable. Like, don't even worry about it. Let's just play it out with what we have here.
Lizard Blades reconfigures 2.
Correct. All right, let's draw, just in case we draw a land, because I want... All right, so we drew Night's Whisper. So how do we want to play this turn? I would also imagine that it's... We can't assume this, but like, let's say we can get in with Gev again this turn, although I think that is a lot more of an ask.
Yeah.
To assume that we could get in again with him this turn. But let's just say we can for the sake of this discussion, which is going to mean an extra 6 damage in favor of this argument.
If I can get in with Gev... I kind of want to play the Lizard Blades.
Okay. So, is it possible that we should Night's Whisper?
Oh, see, we draw land? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to, like, coerce you into that decision. Do you think that's a reasonable play? Okay, so let's play Night's Whisper. Of course. Unlucky. Well, whatever. Okay, right. So let's say we get in for another 9 this turn, and then
we have to pass turn.
Yep, and then we'll pass. Of course, we do the land now. And then we play the land, and then now we don't have a safe attack with Gev, so what are we doing here? Let's say we could, and again, I'm not trying to sway you one way, but let's say Chaos Warp allows us to get in with Gev.
Then I would play the Chaos Warp. Because we want to be aggressive, right? Because we can't... You had mentioned before this, like, don't let up on the gas, keep going.
That is true, but
is that too much?
Well, maybe. So, like, sometimes, and I should have, like, first of all, like, I approve and applaud that you're, like, listening and, like, trying to do what I suggested. However, what I want you to understand about being aggressive is sometimes like setting up or preparing. To be aggressive, sometimes you have to like make some plans and like slow down. It's hard to explain, but if you're setting yourself up to be more efficient in the coming turns, like if you have a plan, sometimes like letting off the gas for a minute can be like the right thing to do. So let's just back up for a minute and like say we drew that, drew that. Okay, so back up to the decision. On this turn, we played Kedis because we wanted to deal 9 damage.
Because we have a free attack with Gev.
Right. And that, that may have been right, but what I'm seeing here is that by playing Bontu's Monument, we could get a Kedis, a 4/4 Kedis. Okay, so say we play Bontu's Monument here, we're still able to get in for 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we go to our next turn, we draw, what do we draw? Knight's Whisper. And on this turn, now we can play Kedis, like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone takes 1, so we do 3. And then we can also play, and then Kedis enters with 4+1 counters, or 3+1 counters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can also play the Agate Assassin, because it's reduced, right?
Right.
It enters with 3+1 counters, and we deal another 3 damage to everyone. So notice that we ended up getting everyone down to the same life that they were. It was a little bit slower, but we haven't even attacked this turn yet. And now we are able to send Gev like we were, deal 9 to everyone, and we've got 11 power on board. Are you seeing why the Bontu's Monument looks like a better play at this point?
Thank you.
Even though it was significantly slower on turn 3, we ended up getting to the exact same point that we were. And this was all cards we had in our hand, like no new information.
Mm-hmm.
Like in this situation on turn 3, I think the Bontu's Monument is the only play, like quite easily. So what I want you to take away from this is that even though this looks like a more aggressive play because you're getting to do 9 damage this turn, the Bontu's Monument, by playing that this turn, set us up to do the exact same amount of damage we ended up doing, but also have 2 4/4s on the board. And the Bontu's Monument was already set up, which reduces our future plays, discounts them. And we played the more expensive card first. So it, as far as I could tell, it's like a win-win-win-win-win to play the Bontu's Monument there. So I want you to really slow down on the early turns and think through the next like 2 or 3 turns when you have a decision like this. The other thing that we haven't even talked about is playing Kedis on turn 3 is very dangerous because Kedis is a card that screams like, this is a problem, right? When opponents read this or you read this to them and say, yeah, whenever my commander deals damage to someone, it deals damage to everyone else also, alarms are going off in people's heads, right? So that is not necessarily a reason not to play it because you are playing an aggressive deck. However, if you have another play that feels like it's like close, I would strongly consider making the other play. And sometimes if you just wait a turn and then play the more threatening thing the following turn, all of a sudden it doesn't seem as threatening because other people are doing scary shit too.
I see.
So even if you didn't identify that the Bontu's Monument ended up being like more damage, because that's a little harder to see, you do have to think more ahead to see that, and you'll get the hang of that. But even if you didn't see that and you felt like, these are really close, I don't know which one's better, I want to be aggressive, that could be a decision maker for you, which is like Kedis is a scary card that people are going to freak out when they see. Mm-hmm. So holding off and playing that a little later is something you should think about, especially if you've got a card like Lizard Blades in hand. You might want to just wait and like sneak it in and then just smash everyone for a lot. Did that all
I
make
got
sense?
it.
Any questions? Like, was that
Nope.
clear? Especially like the Bantu's line into the other two. Did you see how that ended up being a lot of damage?
I did.
Okay, cool. Let's do one more. All right, so this is our first 7.
Everything's too high costing. So I would say no on this one. I don't think I would keep this.
So if we kept this, I'm not saying we should, but like before you just say no, what does an opening look like if we play this out?
Would be the fetch land first into a swamp
Okay. Why are we playing the fetch land right now?
because I don't have any other swamps in hand.
Mm-hmm. So this is like really minor, but you should know. Like deciding to crack your fetch land, you could do this anytime. There's no reason to rush it. The only reason to play the fetch land and crack it early, there are a couple of reasons. Number one is if you're playing Blood Crypt, then fetching Blood Crypt when you can have it enter untapped is useful, right? Because there's value in that, right? You don't have to pay the 2 life because you have nothing to do with it this turn anyway. Or if you're playing Surveil Land, then great. Like you definitely play the Bloodstained Mire first because you want to surveil, right? And bin any lands you find. But even if you're not playing either of those, I still think Bloodstained Mire is the right play. But the reason is not something that you stated, and I want you to know that these thin your deck. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah, you're taking a card out. You're
You're
improving the odds of drawing something else.
of drawing a non-land, and we really don't want to draw land here, right? We've got a hand. Well, I mean, like to be honest, like, do we want to draw land here? I don't know. I think the way this hand plays out now, I know this is difficult, but like, even though I told you like play aggressive and like keep your foot on the gas, if you end up with a hand like this just because you ended up with it, let's say like you kept it in in a fugue state and like whatever, this is the hand you ended up with. I'm not saying that we should keep this hand. I think you're right to say Mulligan this, but like I want to talk about this because like I think this is a good hand and I think this hand could win because not every game is going to play out the same and you can't always go in with the same mindset. So you need to be a little bit flexible. And when you see a hand like this, I think this hand can really be powerful. Like these are 2 very powerful cards that can have very like strong impacts on the game. And the Cryptolith Fragment is one of the best cards in the deck. And it's the kind of card that's so good. It's kind of like the Bantu's Monument. Like, did you see how good that ended up being last game? Like the Cryptolith Fragment's like pretty much the same thing, right? It's, yes, you're taking a turn off and not doing anything and not really hurting anyone, but it's so much better than anything else you could be doing on turn 3 playing this card and or playing Bantu's Monument because it sets your future turns up so strong, right? Like let's say we do nothing for not 2 turns, right? We play this, then we play this, then we cast him, right? And then next turn we play this, and it sucks. We're not doing anything, right? Like we're playing a tap mana rock and then we're hitting someone for 3. That's not going to win us the game, right? Well, it kind of might because now we're untapping. We probably have drawn one more land in the meantime, right? So we've got 5 mana available at this point. And we know that we can burn everyone, right? Just by tapping this for mana. So now everyone's taken 1. And we have 2 ultra powerful plays. One is play Song of Totentans. Totentans. Is that right? Anyway.
Sure.
And if we cast this for X is 4, we're making 4/4/4s on turn 4, right?
Right.
So that's one play. Very, very strong. Or we play this guy. He gives our other outlaws haste. He makes 2 outlaws, right? They each enter as 4/4s. So we go like this, even if we haven't drawn a land. This guy enters, he makes 2 mercenaries. So we tap this, everyone took 1. This guy brings these 2 dudes in. They're 4/4s. This is turn 4, Zach. Now we have 11 damage of attacks. right?
Right.
How good is this? Right? Like, this is turn 4. Like, we're sending 11. And we have, like, 4, 8, 11, 10, 13. We have 13/14 power and toughness on board on turn 4. This is the kind of start you want.
Okay.
So, like, don't be so... I think that this hand is a mulligan, but, like, don't be so quick to say, like, a hand like this isn't aggressive, because do you see how strong and, like, how explosive that was?
Uh-huh.
So, like, I want you to spend a lot of time running through more practice hands, because before you just say no to a hand like this, I really want you to recognize the power of cards like this and Bontu's Monument. They are the cards that are going to win you games.
Okay.
And then, like, a card like this is so good too, because it's going to yoink their best blocker, and that's a big deal too. So let's try one more. All right, is this keepable? No, we have 0 land.
I was okay. This one's easier.
All right, how about this hand? This is our second 7. So
I
take
like
your
this
time.
one.
Okay. Why?
Technically, we have a 1-drop if need be.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Valley Rock Collar, which can damage people.
So I want to back up for a second. I want to hear what you have to say, but I want to, like, caveat something I said about 1-drops, because the more that I'm seeing this deck play out, the more I'm thinking that, like, I don't think you're wanting to play this guy on turn 1. Now,
I'm not saying I would, but I'm saying, like, I have one just in case.
well, I know, but I said a bunch of times that you want to curve out, like, play 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, and I think that is true in most aggro decks. But I think in this deck, you get a lot more oomph by playing your 1-drops on turn 3. Because, like, you get to swing in with Gev and then have your 1-drops enter bigger. Or, like, in the case of this guy, you use this as a combo piece to burn everyone for 1. I don't think you should almost ever be playing this guy in turn 1.
Agreed.
So I just want to, like, state that now, because I think I was unclear at first. So anyway, go back to talking through this hand.
Look, I have enough to play Gev. I have enough to play everything in my hand for now. I think the first thing I would play is the Valley Rock Collar.
Okay, and then you've got this to refuel a little bit, right?
I have a draw piece.
I think without this card, this hand would be a mulligan, but I think with this is a good hand. So I think you're right. Let's just do a little bit more, like, instead of playing the turns out, let's just do another one. So this is opening 7. Is this keepable?
No.
Yeah. All right, second 7.
No.
Agree. Here's our 6.
There's not a way to damage everyone, but there's a light up the stage here that could be useful.
So
I would keep this.
Yeah,
I think I would keep this.
Yeah, definitely. I think this hand looks pretty good.
And there's another,
especially versus going to 5.
Yeah, and there's a nice whisper in there. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, we have some nice options here, and I think, like, this is better than 5. All right, let's do one more, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay.
All right, so this is opening 7.
I really like that Fireglass Mentor. I think I would keep this.
I think so, too. I think Descent into Avernus is probably the best card in the deck, or, like, one of the best 3 cards in the deck. And I would be very hesitant to mulligan any hand that has this card. Plus, you've got a draw engine in the Mentor. I think this hand looks beautiful. This is, like, the exact kind of hand you want. You've got a consistent way to burn everyone, and you've got a draw engine. Beautiful hand, and enough mana to play everything. Like, you can't ask for much more than this. Does that make sense?
It does.
So the cards that you really want are, you know, so the best cards in the deck: Impact Tremors, Agate Instigator, Bantu's Monument, Cryptolith Fragment, Descended into Avernus, Scrawling Crawler. If you've got those cards and a way to play them on turn 3, that hand is a keep.
In the hand we just had, where we have an option between playing Gev, playing the Fireglass Mentor, or the Descent into Avernus on turn 3.
Yeah.
How would you make that decision? Like Gev would obviously be the turn 2 play, but then what's the turn 3 play? Is it the Descent?
I think you always want to develop the way that is going to set you up to trigger Gev. So you want the Descent out first because it's going to burn everyone on your next turn, and then all of your creatures enter with 3. The goal is to get your creatures entering with those 3 counters. The deck, if you're not doing that, the deck is not going to win. Like, you've seen it, you've played enough times to know that, like, the deck just does not have enough oomph to win games. So, and that's why you came to me. You're like, I can't figure out how to get this deck to work. And the answer is, get one of those cards down. Descent, Impact Tremors. Make sure you have these cards that are burning everyone before you play anything else. Even if there are a lot of reasons that it might make sense to play another creature first, like the Ketis turn we talked about, or the whatever that lizard you're talking about right now, always play the setup first, because the only thing you want to be doing is playing stuff and having it enter with 3+1 counters. If you're not doing that, then you're playing a bunch of shitty like lizards that are like good in draft, but not good in commander. But when you're playing a Fireglass Mentor, and I'm not saying this is a bad card, this is a great card, but you know what's even better? This card, except it's a 5/4. Does that make sense?
It does.
So just like, your number one priority is get a way to burn everyone and then start slamming creatures. Or, you know, sometimes you'll draw a really aggressive hand. We didn't draw any, but sometimes you'll draw an aggressive hand and have a card like this. That's a one-time thing. It's like burn everyone for 1. And maybe you've got like a bunch of 1-drops. And then you can just kind of storm off. You can like go slow and like then just like play this and play 3 creatures. And like, that's not perfect. You'd rather have a consistent way of hurting everyone, but not every hand's going to work out that way. And sometimes you'll just have a card like this, and you don't even have to worry about hitting anyone because this just burns them directly. And then you play 3 2-drops and like they're all 6/6s or something. And then everyone's like, what the hell? You just like out of nowhere. Or like, again, we saw some weird hands, but like there are going to be times where you have a pretty slow hand, but maybe it's got a mana rock and it's got like Enduring Courage. Then you just ramp into Enduring Courage and then play all your stuff. So like, Enduring Courage turn 4, don't even worry about, like, you can play Gev or not, like whatever. It doesn't even really matter if you play Gev. The key is to get your setup stuff first. So either like, don't even worry about playing Gev on curve. Like, usually you want to. Like, as you saw, most of those games, you want to do that. But like, keep an open mind and understand that like sometimes it'll be better to just like change what you're doing entirely and worry about landing this Enduring Courage first, and then just like slamming everything at once and just like maybe knocking someone out in 1 turn when they weren't expecting it.
Got it.
Any other questions? I know there's a lot more to talk about, but there always will be, so it's kind of hard.
No, this is great. This is fantastic.
Thank you so much for watching. If this is something you're interested in, please check out my Patreon or contact me directly on Discord. My handle there is SurfCityTCG, or the link to my Discord server is in the video description and in the comments below. Also, I love feedback. I don't get a ton of comments. If you enjoyed this video, if it's something that you'd like to see more of in the future, please let me know. It was a lot of work to produce this and to prepare for it and everything. So it's really validating when I hear from people, letting them know why they liked it or what they felt like could have been better. I love to get constructive feedback too. So don't hesitate to reach out and let me know what you thought. Thanks so much. Matt from Surf City TCG signing off. By supporting me on Patreon, you help me toward my dream of quitting my day job and opening my own local game store. You can earn credits that you can use toward in-depth and detailed deck reviews, one-on-one coaching sessions, custom tokens, and more. Thanks for your consideration. I truly appreciate your support.